All right, boys, here we are, Buck Fever Podcast. We are live here from Kolbe's basement. It looks great, by the way.
Thanks, man. Just got it done. A little 7-month project.
I think it was worth it.
That, if you know me, I had absolutely zero part of because I'm the least handy person in the world. So, not a board, not a nail, not a screw, nothing. I can't say I contributed a damn thing to this basement, but it looks good.
It does look
Loving
really
it.
good.
You supervised the project.
I supervised the project.
You funded it probably. So.
Funded the project.
There you go.
There
That's
we
the
go.
most important part. Now all that's left, it looks like, is just to hang a few deer on the wall.
There's a lot of space for some shoulder mounts down here. So
Or a
now,
pedestal.
Yeah, pedestal mount. You know, there's options and opportunities down here.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, thanks for hosting this tonight. This is like the first time that all four of us have been together in one spot in person, hanging out.
First time we met Eli, too.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
He's been filming for almost a year.
Yep.
Never met him.
First
It's hard,
time.
you know. He's across the state.
I know. Yeah, but here we are tonight and hanging out. You made some fantastic venison smashburgers.
It's a new favorite, man. It's soaring to the top of the list of favorite meals.
It did not disappoint.
I could go for like 3 right now.
I know I could down a couple more right now. That was 2 pounds we went through. That was like, just short of a 2-pound package of meat. So, it didn't feel like it when you smashed that burger down. But
Not really.
those were all of probably. Well, we had 5 total burgers. I bet you
Yeah.
at least a third of a pound each.
Because they also weren't like paper thin. It wasn't like
Yeah.
a McDonald's cheeseburger. Like it was still a good. It was fantastic.
Thank you.
I loved them,
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
especially the onions.
So, so I think we're gonna have a recipe probably like in recipe article form, and then possibly a video.
A
coming out.
hashed together video of.
We don't know what's gonna come through.
We
With,
don't know what that's going to look like.
with
A little kitchen, little. It was getting dark outside by the time
Yeah.
we were actually putting them on the Blackstone, so we'll see what it looks like.
kids
Maybe
bouncing
A couple
around,
cartwheels, yeah.
A couple cartwheels were happening in the background. Kids were bouncing around.
chasing them through the backyard. Good
All
stuff.
good stuff though.
Yeah. And now we're chatting deer, which is kind of the natural progression of the night, I suppose. And we cashed in on our turkey hunting
Yeah, the
loss
boys,
situation.
the Turkey Tag Team Challenge champions, finally getting paid up here with their case of Busch Light.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, half paid.
Half paid.
There's certain people who are going to be keeping an eye on how much we paid up, and they're going to know that we didn't bring the
Well,
wild
they
turkey.
can't find that anywhere in the store, I guess. So
Well,
It's a
like I
rare
said
breed.
earlier, I sent my best man, but, you know,
You just gotta go to Woodman's.
we don't have a Woodman's.
I feel like Festival has to have it, but
Oh yeah.
did you go to Pick and Save or no?
No, that's across town.
Across town. Pick and Save definitely has it for
Yeah.
sure. I've seen it there.
If I didn't have to work till 4, I would have went there. But
Yeah,
well, we're doing a lot better because we don't have it.
exactly.
gonna
I think
say,
it's
though.
well, plus that Busch Light's gonna get warm up there, so we gotta drink probably that whole thing tonight.
drink it pretty quick. We should have
Is
just
it in the fridge?
brought. No,
Oh, your fridge is packed.
you
really?
should have seen him struggle
Yeah,
for
I
like 5 minutes
tried
trying
to
to
get
there's
it
all
in there.
kinds of Busch Light in there, and then there's backup Busch Light in the shed fridge. So I think we'll do okay.
And there's a case of.
We can just
okay.
restock
Right,
with the
yeah.
warm stuff too. So.
We could
Yep.
probably each drink a case.
Yeah. On a positive note, Noah is starting to enjoy Busch Light.
Yes, he hasn't even
Look at
complained
that.
about
Well,
I know.
I mean,
This is a pivotal moment in Buck Fever Outdoors
it.
history.
He just realized that it was actually good, and it doesn't
it's
taste
still
bad.
not. It's still not good, but it's tolerable.
Well, you're to my understanding, you like Miller Lite over Busch Light.
I do like Miller Lite more so because it's a Milwaukee, Wisconsin thing than a Missouri or wherever
St.
the
Louis.
crap
St.
Busch
Louis.
Light is made. Who cares about St. Louis?
Doesn't matter where it's made; it's how it tastes.
Well, you really can't tell the difference. If I blindfold you right now, you
I
can
told
tell
you.
the difference.
Yeah.
difference.
Okay,
I'd-
so if we
I'd
lined
have
you
a
up,
headache right now if I was drinking Miller Lite. for
That's
sure.
what Jake says, but I don't
Yeah.
get any of that.
if we lined you up with Miller Lite, Coors Light, Busch Light, and Bud Light, would you be able to tell all 4?
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying you could.
We need to do this.
Let's
we
do it.
We need
in
to
Minnesota.
Do this. In Minnesota, let's do it because
You're
I've
gonna-
seen people on TikTok say
Yeah.
the same thing. Like, oh, I could definitely tell, and they don't get a single one right.
Or Michelob Ultra. You could throw that in there too.
Let's
Well,
throw it all
are
in
these
there.
like 22-year-old TikTokers
This
or
is
38-year-old
this is
TikTokers
people-
with some experience?
This is people your age.
I
who
bet
are
you I
like,
could tell it
oh,
apart."
I could tell for. They sound just like you. I could tell for sure. And then they get up there and they have no idea.
Well, we're gonna do it.
What do you think, Eli?
I think we should do it. I think we should place bets on it also.
I don't know.
That's
I
fine.
feel like when the blue smoothie hits your lips, it's just
It's just the level of golden flavor that you know.
yeah.
It's fine. It's not like it's not the
It's
best
good.
thing ever, but it's fine. It gets the job done.
It's a psychology experiment.
So what's the date today, guys? What is August
25th.
25th? Man, we are
I believe it.
3 weeks away from the opener.
Yep. It's
Tomorrow,
it's Christmas Eve in 3 weeks.
Christmas Eve in 3 weeks, boys. We are 3 weeks away from the bow hunting Eve opener
Mm-hmm.
in Wisconsin, and it's time to get jacked up.
Yep. And like I said last night, the longest 3 weeks of the year.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure. The anticipation just eating at you.
Yep.
Can't get here soon enough.
I think the first thing to settle is what is opening day going to be like? Because I am convinced it's going to be 90 degrees like it has been the past couple of years. But I don't think you guys agree.
I disagree. I think it's gonna be a little colder.
I think we're in for a colder fall. I don't know, just my fruit trees are producing. They just seem like they're earlier than ever. I've heard some people talk about birds are flocking up earlier than ever. Some of our pictures of some whitetails, they're shedding their summer coats already. Like I feel like
Saw
some of
that
that
today.
stuff's all a little bit of a sign that maybe old winter is gonna be here a little sooner this year.
I mean, I wouldn't be upset if it isn't 90 degrees on opening weekend.
No, I'm hoping it's not 90. I just think it's going to be. Because now it's going to drop back down. It was just 100 past couple days. Now it's dropping back down. But then next weekend it's going to be pretty warm again.
Yeah, but it'll drop down.
I wish I would naturally shed my summer layer at this time of the year.
Just
I
to
noticed-
put on the winter one.
But like, don't you think if it's extra hot out, doesn't that kind of extend the summer a little bit? I was thinking they might hold their velvet a little bit longer, like extend the summer because it's been so hot.
Did you see Jeff posted a video today, Sturgis, that
Sturgis?
he dropped one of his bucks dropped velvet already?
What?
Yeah,
Wow.
Really?
a decent one. I mean, like a older, mature deer too, which is usually how it goes. Obviously,
Yeah, the younger ones.
the
tend to
younger
hold
ones
it.
hold on. I could have shot one in velvet a couple years ago, like a 4-pointer or something like that.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, I guess I just don't know enough. I just always thought their idea was that shedding velvet was hormone related, and that kind of got triggered by temperatures dropping. So if they stayed high for longer, temps wouldn't drop, and then maybe they'd hold it longer. I don't know.
I think it's too
I don't know.
early to tell.
Too early to tell.
Yeah, probably. But nonetheless, we're excited.
Everybody going to be in a tree opening weekend?
Compared to a ground blind, or not even out there.
Just hunting.
Oh,
in
yeah, I'll be
general,
out
right?
there.
Everyone's going to be out, right?
Oh yeah, won't be out in the
Ed-
morning. Just
So no, not opening morning.
we
Just off of tradition, just opening day.
Not
I feel like
even-
we have to go. We talk about it all the time.
We
Like
go in the morning.
we always go in the morning. We go
I-
somewhere, usually public, just for the tradition that we got to be out there. It's opening day.
I won't hunt
You gotta
mornings
go.
till probably end of last week of October into November. That's the first time we'll get out in the morning. Otherwise, it's just at night.
And I admire that dedication because it's probably what you should do.
I mean,
Depending
don't
on
get
the
me
property.
wrong. We definitely could go a few mornings here and there, but it's just that's how I grew up. I never ever
Yeah.
went in the
Is
morning
it an
until.
access issue for you guys?
I mean, it definitely is. Like we got a road, so the property we hunt's like 190 or 80 acres, and it's like split in half exactly by 90. But there's a road that runs right through it, which kind of screws us because then on the road there's fields that butt up to it, so you can't really get in there.
So any access, you got to walk through egg and
Right.
just-
If there's
you-
corn, then you're good. But
Right.
it's beans, so it's
Mm.
they see you coming no
Yep.
matter what, and they're usually out in the beans in the morning. So, but I've never hunted a morning until like at least the last week of October.
Yeah, and I know for us on a smaller property, the more pressure you put on early, the more you blow it out of there. it can really screw you up, and that's kind of what triggers the October lull a little bit. But I don't know. I don't like to miss it.
Yeah, opening morning, I think mornings are really underrated, to be honest with you. People talk about not going in September or October, but I think we started talking a little bit about access. Everything's access. So if you can get in the back door and not disturb the deer, I think mornings can be extremely productive. What was that? Was that 2 years ago when we went out on public in the morning, and it ended up being a squirrel hunter's paradise where we started. So we got out. I think we were out and back to the truck by like 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
But we just went to look at different spots, and it was perfect because we got to drive around where there are no trucks parked, and we found a spot. We walked in and ended up there's a huge buck on his feet, and
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
we both had our bows, and it was like we just went over the top of this hill. We're just walking. It's 8:39 in the morning. You're not expecting a deer to be out in a field.
Right around the corner of a corn
Yep.
field, kind of a path, and shit, he's 40 yards away, running away from
Just
us.
a tank.
170, 180 inches.
Oh yeah, it was bigger than anything we had
Yep.
that year on our private spot.
Well, on opening weekend, they haven't been hunted yet for the year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like that weekend, if you do have a pattern or something, you really can cash in on that.
I would be opposed to going to public like you guys say. Not saying that like, oh, you're not good enough to use your own land, but you don't really want to blow out your property opening morning if you don't have to. I mean, especially you guys got a lot of good public around you.
Yep.
Me not so much, but I wouldn't be opposed to doing that opening morning.
It's kind of a risk reward thing. Like if you got these deer bucks on a pattern in the afternoon, if you go in the morning and end up kicking them off, you kind of, I feel like you end up blowing it for that night. Like the odds of them coming out on that same pattern that night is probably substantially less if you've blown them out and they saw a hunter or someone coming in that morning. Whereas the safer play is to just stay out of there and let them stay on that pattern and get there in the afternoon. That's where, like, for us, it's finding other spots, public, whatever, that we still want to be out in the woods and get out there and get them opening morning vibes. But
We have
somewhere
on
else.
certain years gone on the private though in the mornings.
We have. One year we really screwed it up too. Kicked two big ones.
Yeah,
right
we
by
were,
the barn.
yeah, that was let's just wait until it's light out and walk in. They should be back into the woods by then. We can just no, that was a bad
Come
choice.
around the corner of the corn and two megas are standing out there looking at us.
That's
in the
starting to
beef.
sound like a
man.
pattern for us. We should just start coming full draw as we go around the corner of corn.
Right.
So I know it's still like 3 weeks, a little bit too early to tell, but this year, opening weekend, are we thinking maybe shoot a doe? Or is it an absolutely no does opening weekend?
No doe for us on our prime spots that we're hunting bucks. We will go sit those morning sits on public with the intention of going to doe spots and trying to shoot a doe. But we're not going to shoot one anywhere where we feel like we have a pattern on a mature buck. We don't want to be in there screwing that up. Coming in there with a four-wheeler or dragging out a doe or whatnot.
Right.
Probably not gonna, just because of one, it's hot, which isn't a big deal because I can, we can skin it and whatnot at my uncle's. But I've had, out of the 7 bucks I've killed, 6 of them have been opening day. So
Yeah.
I think 4 of them have been on opening day of bow, or 3. So it's kind of hard for me to. I've only killed 1 in November. Everything besides gun, but that was
Right.
opening day of gun. Everything else was November, so it's hard for me to shoot a doe opening day, knowing the success I've had.
Man, I knew you were good on opening day. I didn't realize you were that. Have you shot a buck with your bow other than opening day?
November 4th, my very first one.
Okay.
Other than that, after my first one, it's always been opening day of bow. I've shot 3 other ones opening day of bow, and then 3 other ones with a gun opening day.
Dang.
Which is weird because I hunt almost every single weekend, so it's not like I'm not out there during the the late part of November or even October, but I don't know what it is. I've killed a lot of them when it's been 80 degrees out.
I feel like you're gonna shoot one like the second weekend in October.
I'd be fine with that. I almost killed one the second weekend of September this year when
I know.
the weekend you killed yours, I almost killed one on Friday night, but I just didn't take the shot. He's like 35 yards away in the bean field right before dark, but I'm glad I didn't because it probably wouldn't have ended well. So
Yeah. See, you guys always do pretty well at shooting does though when you need to. I feel like every weekend that I go out, I just make an excuse as to why I can't shoot a doe. Early season will be because I don't want to blow out any bucks or it's too hot. And then it starts getting later into the season. Well, now it's pre-rut, it's prime time, and then gets into late season, it's all of a sudden it's gun season, and then I want to wait. I just always make an excuse as to why I can't shoot a doe for that weekend. So I'm like, I think if this year if I have an opportunity, I think it's just got to happen.
Yeah, I've evolved on the don't shoot a doe during the rut. Like, go ahead and shoot them because it doesn't matter. Like, it really doesn't.
Because they're traveling so far.
Yeah,
you're not blowing out a spot.
Yeah, the bucks are just on the move.
Yeah.
So you shoot a doe, like, hopefully she dies within sight, and you can have one come sniff her.
I think
Right.
you need to shoot the first mature doe you see this year because, I mean, we were talking about on the way up here. I mean, it's been quite a few years since you've killed one with the bow, just to get the confidence back. And not saying you're not confident, but the shooting at
Yeah.
a deer with the bow, because then a buck comes through, you're like, oh, nothing to it.
I don't know how long it's been with a bow. We were thinking maybe 8 to 10 years. It's been 6
it had
years
to
since I've
been.
shot a deer, period.
Which
Dang.
I
6
give you
years.
a ton of credit for, because that is insane. Like, just like my uncle, he hasn't killed one with the bow. It's been a long time, almost longer than my dad, and he still goes out there every year and he'll pass up ones that a lot of people would be happy to shoot for their first one with the bow, and I give him tons of credit for that. Just, I know I've been very fortunate, but that
Right.
wouldn't be me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all about, what are your goals? If you're a new hunter and one of your goals is to shoot a big buck, then you should pass them. I mean, personally, I would recommend that you just shoot whatever, like, and get a few kills under your belt, and then you can start adjusting your goals accordingly. Like, I have an 11-year-old that if he can consistently hit a paper plate, he's going to bow hunt this year, and he hears me talk about deer hunting all the time. So in his mind, he's like, oh, I show him pictures. He's like, oh, that's not that big of a buck. It's like it's a 2.5-year-old,
Right.
125-inch. Like, that's a nice buck.
Right.
And most people would be ecstatic to shoot something like that. It really doesn't matter what you shoot, but the experience of having to see a deer and figure out where am I going to draw, how am I going to make a good shot, and executing that, I think that's important just moving forward, because as the rack gets bigger, the heart ticks faster, and the only way to get better at it is to practice it.
Right. And I've been notoriously very steady, like when it comes to sturgeon spearing, let's say.
Yeah, I don't think you have a
Zero nerves.
soul, really.
Zero nerves at all. But with deer, I think it's elevated.
I don't think my nerves are worse after.
Yeah.
I'm pretty calm when it comes to it, but after it's, I literally have buck fever.
Right.
After I could shoot a doe and I'll be shaking like a leaf,
I know.
about to fall out of the tree stand.
Right?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I seriously think you should whack the first doe you see,
I think so.
regardless of what the temperature is, because you got a 3-hour drive home, so you don't
Yeah.
even hunt Sunday nights really until
No,
later
not
in the
Sunday
year.
nights.
Yeah.
No.
Just shoot
You
one.
should start hunting Sunday nights
Probably.
Absolutely.
and just don't care about. I think that was a big difference. We used to be the same way. Didn't matter if we were at my cabin or I'd be in La Crosse. We wouldn't hunt Sunday nights because you're just, oh man, we got a 2-hour, 3-hour drive home. Not
Yep.
going to get back till
Yep.
10, 11 at night. But like, especially this early season when your best odds seemingly seem to be the afternoon, like means you're putting all your eggs in the basket on Saturday night.
Right.
And then,
Right.
mediocre effort or circumstances in the mornings, Saturday morning, Sunday morning. So you're giving yourself basically one good opportunity.
Yep.
And then we switched and we just said, I don't care if I get home at midnight. A couple nights I know me coming back from lacrosse, getting home at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., alarm goes off at 5:45 and you're going to work the next day and you just suck it up for a day and you're tired. But giving yourself that second full opportunity, it's just a sacrifice I think you gotta start making.
Right, which brings up then, like you said, if I'm only hunting one night, if I could stay Sunday, what if I could get there for a Friday night? So now I go from one night to 3 nights.
It's a huge difference.
But then do I stop mornings? Do I not hunt Saturday, Sunday morning?
If you give yourself 3 days, then yeah.
Well, right, because
sure.
if I hunt 5 hunts in a row, we have a noticeable difference. If we hunt on Saturday, Sunday sucks, which is half of the reason why we don't hunt Sunday nights, because it sucks after we've hunted for a day.
That's because you guys, you almost have to hunt Sunday morning if you're not going to stay Sunday night, because you're
Right.
only hunting Saturday night.
Right.
Yeah.
Plus, you're only hunting a 40-acre chunk to compared to where
Right.
us 3 are hunting almost a 200-acre parcel.
Yeah.
So you
Because the
kind of
pressure is just so much higher.
And you're really only hunting 20 acres because you got what, a 20-acre field
It's
or a 15-acre field, so you're hunting
Yeah.
25 acres, which really just condenses
with
everything.
at least 3 guys.
Exactly,
Yeah.
which is extremely hard to hunt coming in all the same way. Because I know you guys, I know
And
a little bit
access
about
is
your
limited.
access point. You're not coming from, you're not dropping somebody off on the other road to come in the back way. You kind of just almost got to go right through all of it, which
Yep.
is, whatever. But
Right. Yeah.
I told you your spot is like 20 minutes from my house. So
It's not far.
when you come down, let me know, and I will go hold your hand and
Yeah, we can
show
go
you
out
some
public together.
public spots.
We should definitely do that.
There are a ton of them around
Lots
there.
of them.
There are, yeah. I think with public for us, it's been just having to go in there and then hang a stand that day. I think if we were gonna hunt an afternoon on public, that would be fine, because then you can go in daylight and hang your sticks and hang your stand and whatever. But I don't want to be doing that at 3 a.m. in pitch black.
Do you have a climber?
I have one that I was lent.
Yeah, that you should get good with that. And honestly, you don't even need to be that high in the tree. If you have a more portable set of sticks that what do we got? Hawk helium sticks and XOP stand, and if you practice with it,
Right.
it probably takes me 15 minutes to get up a tree with that. With my climber, I bet once the climber's attached to the tree, I can pretty much climb the tree at about the same speed as I would going up ladder sticks.
But is it hard to find a tree that you can climb with a climber?
No, not for me.
You just break branches or what?
No, there are plenty of them. But a lot of the times with my climber, I've gone into those spots. And I don't do a ton of summer scouting anymore, but I used to do a ton of it. And I've gone into spots and modified trees where they got a bunch of small branches that you can legally cut off, and I just have those trees that are set up and in a good spot, and I can go to them and.
Which I think you
tree.
can't understate the summertime preparation that should go into hunting public like that, because that's the other half of why we typically don't. We always talk about it, especially when things are slow on our property, but then we're like, well, we don't know anything about this public piece. We can do whatever you can do on whatever app you use to kind of figure out where you think a decent location might be, and then whatever scouting the day of or whatever. But we're always like, well, we have to drive this far, and then we have limited time while we're here. You're kind of just more comfortable with the devil that we know rather than trying to go and figure out a public piece with limited time.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I just think that's the thing, though. If you can, once you break out of that comfort zone,
Yep.
and it was the same thing for us. Like, the default is always to go with what you're. Oh man, it'd be so much easier to just go into the private, walk into a pre-hung set, and then you just all of a sudden you do it.
Yeah.
And you dive into these places in the dark. Sometimes you find a tree right away. Sometimes, shit, it's getting light out. And you finally come across a tree and you get up, and who cares if it's... The thing is, like, who cares if you get in after light? Maybe you don't even have a great sit, but now it's light out. You go, oh, crap, I should have been over there.
Mm-hmm.
You've now learned that spot. Just by being in there one time, you've learned the spot, learned something about it. Now, the next time you want to come in, you're already, more comfortable with it. You haven't messed with your property. So now your night sit's going to be better because you weren't in there during the day. And you've learned something about a different piece of property. And if you see deer that morning, now you've also learned something else. Maybe how they travel through it, things like that. So I think it's just breaking out of that initial like discomfort of, man, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm going to find a tree. I don't know if we're in the right spot. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, even if you don't end up in the right spot, I bet you'll find somewhere once it's daylight or on the way out, like, oh, I should have been over here.
Right.
Like, look at this sign over here. Like, but now you know.
Yep.
And now, if that was Saturday morning, now Sunday morning, you can mark that tree and boom, now you're in there. And now you're comfortable already, one day later.
Right.
So
And
it's just a matter of...
Yeah, absolutely. And even if you don't ever get up into a tree, it doesn't matter.
Right.
You go in there, you're walking slow, and it gets light out, who cares? Like, you want to be in a tree, but if you don't find the right situation, like, there's not much sign around here, and I'm not going to go climb a tree, go through the effort of putting my stand on a tree and getting all my stuff up there and getting set up so that I can't see any deer. Like, I'll just keep walking. And the other thing would be, you get a weekend where you go down there, and I know you want to hunt your private, but conditions aren't optimal. Leave your place in the morning and don't even go back and hunt in the afternoon. Just commit your day to public, and you'll find multiple spots. You can carry your climber with you. You can go modify your trees, mark them on your map, and now you've got 6 spots that you can go in the dark. They're marked. You know how to get into them. Like, it's just going to make you a better hunter.
I'll give you a case in
Right.
point. Last year, Minnesota, I think it was the Monday that all 3 of us missed bucks that day. I had never been into this piece before, and I carried my climber in. I was not in my climber in a tree until 11:30 in the morning. I carried the thing around. The initial spot I had marked on the map that I thought I was going to sit didn't end up being right. I was in all these prickers and whatever those the things that tag on your... I was covered in them.
Yep.
Ended up going to a different spot. Had a bunch of action just sitting on the ground. That's that time I had that like doe and spike buck come running past me at like 8 yards, tongues hanging out, middle of the rut. Ended up finally getting into that tree at like 11:30, further down another spot, and then I had the shot opportunity at about 1 o'clock. But I now have like 5 different spots marked from that day alone, and I had never been in there before.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter that I didn't get in a tree before light. In fact, if I would have gotten in a tree before light in my initial spot, it may have been a dud of a day, but it just didn't feel right. Kept walking around, sat on the ground a bunch of different times, had those, encounters with other deer. Finally said, okay, this is how this property is kind of setting up. This is how they're working through here. Finally got into a tree, and then that like 1 o'clock shot opportunity that I blew.
Yeah.
That's just a great example of exactly what we're talking about. Just having no clue what that property really was other than aerial scouting it and then getting in there and trying to, figure it out.
Yeah, it was almost the same situation for me in Minnesota last year. Mine was a little bit different because mine was opening day in the rainstorm. I ended up getting stuck in the mud off the highway and was just soaking wet. And then
Yeah, I'll take one.
a cold front came in and I was freezing. So I'm like, I got to get out of here. And I ended up going to a different public spot, and advantage was I got there at like, I don't know, 2 o'clock or 2:30 by the time I was done messing around. And I didn't even take a tree stand in there. I just walked in to see what was going on. Like, wow, this looks pretty good. So that Monday, I went back in there, and I didn't have a tree picked out. We looked at the map, kind of decided the general area where I wanted to be. Like, we hunt hills in Wisconsin, so we found this ditch that was between 2 points, and my plan was to go in there and find where's the heavy trail that's kind of crossing this ditch, because it looked, based on the topo, like it was really steep on both sides. So I went in there. I waited till it was light out. I actually put a turkey call in my mouth as I walked in there and was just clucking. And I got in there, found this trail. I'm like, yep, this is where I'm going up. I went up the tree. My backpack's on the ground. I had my gun, no cameras or anything. And I got up, and I was starting to pull my backpack up, and there's a deer coming already. And that thing came behind me, a small buck, crossed the ditch, and then that's when I ended up seeing that big one across the ditch. But it was the same thing. Like, I went in relatively blind and waited. I don't think I was up in a tree until 9 in the morning, 9:30 maybe in the morning. So I just was walking really slow with a turkey call, looking around, looking at sign, basically still hunting my way down this ravine until I found exactly what I was looking for, and then I climbed the tree. So it was probably 9:30 before I was even up into a tree. You don't need to be set before daylight if it's a new spot.
And I think that's a misconception sometimes too, that everyone thinks that you need to be up in a tree in your tree stand to actually be hunting. Like, it doesn't matter if your stand's on your back and you're on the ground, you are still like hunting.
Yep.
While you're on the ground, you're still taking in all your surroundings, looking for signs. Sometimes you just sit on the ground and like, it might not be worth the, I don't feel like it's worth the effort here to set everything up, climb the tree, but I just want to sit here and observe for a half hour and just see what's going on in this area, because it feels kind of right, but I don't know if it's like the spot.
Yep.
And then nothing happens for that half hour, maybe even an hour. Then you just move on. Or something happens, and then, yeah, this might be it. And as soon as that action disappears, you get up in a tree and set up there. So,
yeah, I think that's great advice. I got a question also, but buddy, you like got the front half of your body under the camera, but your butt was like
full on the camera.
I mean,
Well, I was just really didn't want to just unplug everything
no,
there.
I know, but you tried in the first half, but you really.
I noticed that. I kind of felt that it was up in the air.
It was a little high. My mic's falling down too. But so, do you think that on public land,
you should fix it.
I'm gonna fix it. Do you think that on public land, because you can be a little bit more aggressive because you're not as worried about blowing it out, that you end up almost having somewhat of a higher chance of success in some ways?
I wouldn't say it's a higher chance at success. I think I don't know. Honestly, I think I mean, it depends on the property. I think the property the private that we hunt on, you could go in with the same approach. I've gone in with the same approach in the past. Like in 2020, there was a morning, it's like, I don't know, first or second week of October, and there was a morning where I was able to go and hunt, and I parked down at the bottom, walked up the ditch, and I ended up getting up, like, scaling this hill. It's like, I don't know.
Is that the oak side?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like 250, 300 feet of elevation change in the span of, as a crow flies, 100 yards. Like, it's like straight up.
Yeah, it's straight up there with a climber on your back. That's a doozy.
Yeah, it was a doozy. And I ended up, actually that day I got set up before light. But the only reason I knew exactly what tree I wanted to go to, because we used to have a tree stand hung in there, but we could never access it because we were never willing to walk up the hill like that. Without a climber on your back, it wouldn't be as bad. I actually did that with Ty during gun season.
Yeah.
We scaled that hill, and it's still not fun, but it's not terrible. But that morning, I ended up having 3 bucks walk by me at 15 yards. They just weren't the ones that I wanted. So there's a morning, first or second week of October, where you walk in there, and that one wasn't necessarily blind, but it's the same kind of idea. Like you don't have to necessarily have a plan. Like I just as easily, like actually, Big 9 behind the house there.
Yep.
I walked in there with my climber. Never had been in there before. What even made me decide to go there? I can't even remember what it was. It was like something along the lines of we had seen deer running this hillside and in the past, and like, well, this bottom would be one of the only transition points between the. So I just decided to go in there blind, and
Got her figured out there yet? So it's
I do not. Something
she looks like a struggle.
but
For
you
the
know,
record, Jake set this up the first time.
Okay.
All of ours are pretty good though.
right. But yeah, and long story short, first sit ever in that spot, I had our number 1 target deer come, and that was my own fault. That was like the one time I ever had scent work for me, but it ended up working against me because I did a drag up there, did a drag down, and then hung the wick up, but still had stuff on my boots. Walked back up the same trail and then cut into where my tree stand was.
You're jinxing me, Switz. Now I'm dealing with it.
So
That's what I'm saying. What
this
was
deer came
Jake
in,
thinking?
started following my drag line, and then instead of following it to where I hung the wick, he ended up following it and turning and walking straight at my tree.
That's no. See, we'll do that too with that. Spray your boots or dip a dipstick in the back and walk to your stand with it. I've never had any luck with it. I've also haven't done it a ton, but I always try it.
I've got 20 years of experience with it, and that's the one time that I had a deer follow it. So we've been through this before, but yeah, the scent game is not my jam.
What about the decoy game? I don't know if you guys throw decoys out, considering you hunt a lot of bluffs. I know you have some field.
I had it work once. I did have it work once. I've very little experience using it. I think I only used it once or twice, and it worked one time. I was sitting in the old FDS field stand. Had that buck decoy out, whatever the Flambeau buck decoy is, and half rack on it. Took half off, and that funky 9-pointer came out a couple hundred yards out of the peninsula, and I don't know if I grunted or rattled. I can't remember. That was a long time ago. Getting old.
Probably a grunt.
Probably a grunt, yeah. Yeah, my rattling success prior to antlers wasn't very good. And he came on a beeline across the field right to the decoy, and I decided not to shoot him. So I'm probably 50% success rate because I've only done it about twice and it worked once, but haven't done it in probably 8 years.
That's actually funny because I had when I hit MJ, when he dropped down and I hit him high, I had a double decoy set up. I had a doe with a buck behind it. And I think that was on, I don't know, November 1st or 2nd maybe. Or maybe it was even October still, I can't remember. Somewhere in that time frame, I had
Was he sniffing? Was he mounting her? What was the setup look like? Was she bedded?
Setup was real nice. I got to watch their silhouettes in the sunset after I had hit that deer. Yeah. No, she was just standing there. I had him about.
Well, no shit. She wasn't moving. She's a decoy.
Well, I've taken the legs off of the doe decoy before to make it a bedded
all right.
doe.
All right.
So
She's standing, not
clarify,
bedded.
yeah. And then the buck was right behind her, like maybe 3 yards. He came out, circled around. He was behind him, and he didn't. I mean, he did, by no means ran right into the decoy, but he was checking it out. And I think once he got close enough, it was almost like a spook thing. Like,
Yeah.
why aren't these things moving?
I think there's definitely a certain use for it probably my biggest regret that I've ever had hunting is not setting up a decoy at Gabby's property. She had a buck that was probably 135 inches or so. She was sitting out by herself one night, saw the buck, phone was dead, no pictures, no videos, but it was too far away, couldn't shoot it, and came back and said she saw a giant back there. Nobody believed her. What is she saying is a giant buck, whatever, So I think it was the next night I went and sat out with her, and it was pre-rut, and we didn't set up a decoy. And I was just afraid that depending upon how old the buck really was, what the situation was, it might just end up spooking him. He might not like it. I was kind of hesitant to do it. And sure enough, out he popped that same night on the same far side of the field. And we could grunt at him, and that got his attention. He liked that, but he would look right in our direction, and then you could tell he was like, he wanted to come in there, but he didn't see the buck that was grunting at him. And I am almost positive if we would have had a decoy out there, he would have come in. Whether or not Gabby would have got a shot, whether or not like everything would have came together, who knows? But I think we would have had a much better opportunity there if we would have had a decoy. So I think there's definitely some value.
Yeah, sometimes those like field edge setups like that, I think it's really can be useful because if a deer does come out at a certain distance and you call, whether it's rattle or grunt or whatever, and they snap their head, they're looking, but they're like, what the heck? I don't see anything.
Exactly.
Versus if you're in a hardwoods, that's a whole different story. They can't see wherever they're at. They got to come in to investigate. But if they're across the field and hear something, they might give you a look and they might be interested. But when they don't get that visual reassurance that something's there, they're just like, no.
Well, they can just pinpoint it so precisely. Like they know exactly where that sound came from. So if they're looking right there and they don't see anything, they're just not coming.
You know my Uncle Randy. He loves the decoys. I mean, I wouldn't say loves them, but my dad and him and my other uncle and now even me, we'll take off almost a whole week. Either the end of October into the first week of November, whatever. And by day 5 or 6, you're just like, all right, well, let's try something new. So he loves throwing out decoys. And I've personally never had any luck with it, but like I have a buck, or I have a doe and he has a buck, so he might take 2 of them out and set them up and whatnot. And he's had little ones, or year and a half and 2.5 come by, but honestly, I've only grunted or rattled in one deer in my whole life, and that was last year when it was November the 3rd, a Wednesday. It was like it was gonna get up to 70 degrees that day. I remember.
Mm-hmm.
It was my first day of vacation. I took off and we were hunting, and it was like probably almost 55 degrees already in the morning, and I grunted, and like 2 minutes later this buck walks in. That's the only time I've ever, and he was a shooter, had him at 11 yards, couldn't draw back because he just came in too quick and he pinpointed me, so that stand got moved in the off season. But that's the only time I've ever had luck with even rattling or grunting one, and then I'm one to be aggressive with the calls. Right. I like to let them know what's around, at least in the rut.
So I kind of want to get into our main topic before too long here, but on that same subject, what is your guys' opinion on the snort wheeze? Because I don't know if I will ever snort wheeze at a deer again ever in my life. I don't think I'll ever do it.
I did it once when I was like 11 or 12 and didn't really understand the whole concept of it. Never worked. If
you want to see a deer run away from you as fast as possible, in my experience, you snort wheeze at it.
That's if you don't have a mature. If you grunt or snort wheeze at a 4 or 5-year-old who's been on your property for the last 3 years, I almost positive he would probably come in like that.
That's probably true.
Do you need a call to do? Like, can we hear it to confirm whether we would run away or not? Can you make it right now?
Is it an actual snort wheeze?
It's an actual snort wheeze call. Yeah, it's not just me like.
Okay.
Just blowing your nose.
No, it's an actual like snort wheeze call. I've seen them do it, and because you watch them do it on YouTube, and they do their little snort wheeze into their call, and boom. I mean, Giant just comes running in. He's just firing.
You can't snort wheeze a year and a half. That's probably not going to end well. But you know, yeah, those guys on YouTube, they're also hunting on 600 acres with
Right.
like the
Yeah.
Drurys, 600 acres, and they're hunting 7.5-year-old deer. That's a little different. I do think it's a little not overrated, but every time you see it, it does work.
Right.
I
I
mean,
mean,
that's not true.
I think if I ever come in contact with a 7-year-old deer, I'd probably hit it with my car. I don't know that I'm ever going to have a 7-year-old deer on my property, but I think, yeah, in that case, it probably does work.
I
But
guarantee you, though, that there are maybe not 7, but probably like 5 to 7-year-old deer near your property, just knowing where it's at. And those younger bucks have all gotten their butts whooped by them.
yeah.
So they hear a snort wheeze, and they're like,
That I could see, for sure.
see ya.
That I could see.
So have you two ever snort wheezed a buck in, or even at a buck?
I've done it, but never successfully. I've very minimally. It's always been a last resort for me, but
I have I have done calling sequences where I'll start off with like just a real low grunt, and then sort of build up over the span of 10 minutes, and towards the end of it I will throw a snort wheeze in there and wait, and then I'll hit horns together, and I've had that work. But I don't know if it's the snort wheeze or the grunts or the horns, or like I can't definitively say I've snort wheezed a buck in.
Right.
Like the only other time I've really done it would be when I have a deer that's walking away from me.
Yeah.
Like this is also 2020. Man, 2020 was just an awful year for me. Like it was a really good year. I had so many encounters, but
And that was like a
it was
great year for
terrible.
you, right, Kolbe?
it was insane.
Yeah.
That's the year I shot $4.
It was a COVID year.
Yep.
But
part of
Eli,
a COVID
Eli
year.
did have an insane amount of encounters that year.
Yeah, it was just nuts.
It was bad in terms of like actually putting something on the ground, but
Right.
it was a good year in terms of
Yeah.
deer sightings and
Yeah.
big
So
buck encounters.
on this morning I was going back to school. You know, I partied too much in my younger years and never had finished it. It was close. Like had to take just a couple classes, but didn't finish it. So I was back in school, and I had a presentation that I had to give at like noon that day. So instead of preparing for that, I stayed up late the night before, got everything ready, got like 3 hours of sleep, woke up, went out to the woods, and I said, at 10 o'clock, I have to leave. Like, I need to get out of the tree, and I need to get out of there. Well, 10 o'clock hit. I was disciplined. I started packing my stuff up, and my jacket, like, has a little thumb hole in it, so I had to take my release off, put it over my jacket. So to get undressed, because it's, like, I don't know, back to the stand I was in, it's over a mile walk from where we park. Like, I'm not wearing my jacket all the way back to the truck. I'll be dead from overheating. So I take my release off, I hang it up, like on my, I think I hung it on my on the stabilizer of my bow that was hanging up in the tree, and I take my jacket off, and I have one arm out, and I'm turned towards the tree, and I hear "Marp," and I look over my shoulder, one arm out of my jacket, and there's a really nice buck coming. Oh, so like he wasn't paying any attention to me. His nose was on the ground. I ripped my arm out of my jacket. I'm fumbling around to get the release back on, and by the time that happened, he'd gotten past any shooting lane I had. He was going to be behind brush. So I did the next best thing. I whipped my phone out and snapped a picture of him.
Sent me a nice picture of that freaking giant 8-point.
Oh man.
I think it was a giant 8-pointer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Man.
But
That was the
I
year
snort
of-
wheezed at him.
that was the year of terrible timing for you.
Yeah. Nothing worked out well. That
Yeah.
I will say I don't think I've ever had one run away though.
no.
Really?
No.
Yeah, that's
Maybe
if you
not
want to.
care. Maybe snap his head and look, and nope, not
Interesting.
coming in. But never had one run away.
Maybe I'm doing it wrong. It sounds like I'm doing it just like they do it on YouTube, but it's
Could
See,
just be the wrong buck.
That's a generational
Yeah.
gap, though, because we never would have said like they're doing it on YouTube. We just said like they're doing it on the outdoor channel.
Yeah.
right. But I mean,
I know. I hear you. I'm just saying generational gap.
yeah,
Here.
Yeah, you got
There's-
two different age groups here.
for sure.
Yeah, and generational gap too. Like maybe yours is a little too high pitched. I mean, you're a bit younger.
Right, you are a young
just,
buck.
Just kind of went through puberty, whereas we're a little bit more mature. It's a little bit deeper sound.
Sure. Yeah.
So maybe there's a difference there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to look into that. Gonna just start watching the outdoor channel, whatever that's on. However you get to the outdoor channel, I guess.
It's called TV. So it's
Do you have cable?
I don't think so.
I didn't think so.
I don't think so. I've got Netflix. I've got Peacock. I've got Hulu. Whatever
know-
you need, but
Do you know what
Besides
cable?
cable.
Do
You've
you
got
know
a
what cable
Peacock?
is?
yeah.
Pat.
No. Like the streaming service.
I
You
don't
got a
know
big
anything
satellite on your roof too, or
You did send us a picture of a peacock in the spring. That you
Yeah,
wanted
that
to
freaking
shoot.
peacock
That's
turkey.
not, it's a turkey.
it's
That's the
not
most
real.
beautiful turkey on planet Earth.
That is
just
right.
so
Boy,
we're
now we're going down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, that like we don't even need to start that conversation.
we don't because I just said what the facts are.
No.
That's the most beautiful turkey on planet Earth.
I don't think you've ever seen a strutting eastern in the sun ever.
Well,
I've been with you and we've seen them, and I can
you
tell
guys,
you.
you guys got to just start by killing one. Okay, we can't. We can't.
Oh,
It's been a
boom.
while. It's been a while. We'll give you that.
It's been way too long. That's for sure. Way too long.
We've been getting screwed a little bit. Can't say we aren't trying because I went every single week last year.
We tried really hard. We went all the way to Nebraska to try it
Well,
the
I
year
also-
before.
I
I feel like
did-
you guys waved the white flag a little early on the competition this
Oh
year.
yeah, 2 hours in, I was pissed. It was over.
He was. I
feel
also
like it was
I
over
did
quick.
I did miss one, so that didn't help. Okay, but to be fair, your Thursday Friday that you guys killed them or Wednesday Thursday was great weather.
Thursday, Friday.
And then
And
we
we
had Saturday,
go
Sunday.
Saturday Sunday and it's like rain and frickin' snow almost. Like
Yep.
it wasn't. Not making excuses because I did end up missing one. That's beyond the point.
Did you film that?
Yeah, it's on film. I got a great video of it when he flies up and flies at us at about 5 yards and we unload on him.
That was great. You and Terry are trying to shoot him out of the sky, and he's just.
I called him off of the roost. Like he came down at like 5 o'clock in 4 season, which is pretty early. I called him off with my mouth call, and he's like, he gobbled once, and I'm like, oh, he's on the ground already. And then, he gobbled again 2 minutes later, and he's like, okay, shit, he's like 70 yards away. I call, and the next thing you know, he's like 30 yards. I'm like, dude, he's right there. Yeah, it was just a bad. Long story short, we went back, and I looked at where I was shooting, and I absolutely destroyed a branch that was in the way. I just got a little trigger happy.
Yeah.
He was getting a little spooky just because there was a hen, which was me, and there was no hen out there. We didn't have a decoy out there, so he wasn't stupid. And
Yeah.
if I would have waited a little bit, I think my dad maybe would have got a shot at him, but he couldn't see him. So live
You'll
and
have
learn.
that.
Live
Yeah.
and learn.
Yeah. You'll have that.
So I'll just shoot a couple this year now.
Right. Maybe this fall. Might have better luck than the spring.
I usually get a tag.
Yeah. It's probably worth a shot.
Right.
But on that note, we want to kind of talk about goals for the season as we're getting pretty close here, and everybody
I'm
kind of
gonna
has
jump
to.
out quick.
Okay. We'll come back to you. However you're gonna make your. Okay, there you go. Okay, maybe we'll start with Eli then. We'll go season by season, I think. So Wisconsin archery season. I mean, it goes without saying everybody's goal is to shoot a big buck, right? But to get a little bit more specific into that, do you have anything like an age range or a certain buck or a certain time?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm at the point now where I really don't want to shoot any more 3-year-old bucks. I want them to be mature, 4 years old plus.
Mm-hmm.
So we've kind of talked about it. Like any of the deer that I think might be 3 for me are off of the list. And I honestly, there's nothing wrong with shooting a 3-year-old deer. I've shot plenty of them. Just the point that I am at, I guess, in my evolution as a hunter, I want to shoot a mature deer. So I'm not gonna go ahead and call my shot or anything, but that's the plan, is to shoot one that is at least 4 years old plus. Yeah.
I think you got to throw in there though that they got some tanks this year. I mean you've got a handful that are well over that age limit and are for sure mature. So I agree. If I were you guys too, I probably wouldn't be shooting 3-year-old deer just because of. I mean, like we said earlier, you guys got a 140-inch 2.5. So
right.
I mean,
yeah,
you got that one that Mr. Krabs is just giant, and you think he's what 4.5, maybe 5.
I think he's probably a 4-year-old.
Yeah,
Thank you.
He's probably a 4-year-old. Possibly 5. Last year we were in the debate, and we were between 3 and 4.
right.
The neighbor seemed to think that he was a 4-year-old, but who knows?
But, I mean, we just watched that video where you shot your Poppy last year, and he was in there, and I'd probably agree that he looks a little skinnier in that. Just seeing him in that one,
That's the
that
generational
he might
gap.
just be a 4-year-old and a tank of a 4-year-old.
Yeah. I mean, ideally, I think a better question for me for archery would be not what's my goal this year, but over the next 3 years, what's the goal? And my goal would be to evolve from that, where I'm. Last year I shot a 3-year-old. I said this year I want to shoot a 4-year-old, and my goal in the next 3 years is to kind of be at that point where I can start to wait until they're 5, because 4-year-olds are a mature deer, but man, those 5-6-year-olds that's really when they start to pack stuff on. So that would be, I guess, my goal over the next 3 years is, can I be disciplined enough to let those deer walk and start to try to build a little bit older age structure.
Yeah. Okay, so Jake, same question. Wisconsin archery season. I'm not getting into gun yet, but just for the bow season. I mean, I know it's been a couple of years now. You're coming off a Blade Runner, which is your biggest ever. It's pretty impressive buck, but it's been a couple of years now. So, what's your goal here this year?
I mean, we don't have anything near Blade Runner caliber this year. He was like 155. I bet you the biggest we got is a 130, which is still an awesome deer. And I like Eli's point of waiting for him to be 4.5 and whatnot. And I would love to do that on our property, but the problem with ours is that one, the road goes through it, and it's not. There's a lot of field that everybody can see, and plus our neighbors are all retired old guys who live right where on that property. So those guys are hunting all the time. I mean, I think a couple of years ago we had like 4 or 5 of them that were hit listers on ours that were killed by the neighbors just because they can hunt way more than we can. So that 3.5-year-old is definitely our threshold of where we're taking them, and we're gonna get together and be like, we'll sit down before the year starts, me, my dad, and my uncle, and all right, these are the ones we'll take, and these ones we'll get the pass on and whatnot. But like I agree with Eli. If you can let them get up to that maturity, it's crazy, because I don't know if Blade Runner was a 4.5 or if he was just a really, really good 3.5. But either way, that maturity is insane to me. But I think that we don't have the best daytime pictures yet, but we got 2 bucks that are pretty consistent around here that I would probably shoot. So I don't know if we'll get a crack at them or if I necessarily will, but I think if I hunt hard enough like I have been, I'll probably at least lay eyes on them. I wouldn't scoff at shooting that half rack too. If I have, I mean, if he comes out and I
Right.
see him, I'd probably put an arrow on him. Opening weekend or the second weekend, probably not. But
Yeah.
later on in the year, maybe.
Well, Blade Runner is really an interesting case there because the year prior to you shooting him, he's a textbook 2.5-year-old. Like, he's 110 inches, not a lot of mass. He's a 2.5-year-old deer. Like, there's really no debate about it. And then the year that you shot him, his neck is just insanely thick. He put on 50 inches in a year. Like,
He was 200.
huge.
He was 220 pounds field dress.
Huge
opening
deer.
day of Wisconsin. Opening day in September.
right. So then
So-
that's the question. Was he either a really weak 3.5 and then showed his potential as a 4.5, or was he just a regular old 2.5 that really blew up at 3?
And that's because we had pictures of him standing next to a buck we called Hightower, who was like 150 inch that the
Yep.
neighbors killed, and he looked tiny next
Yeah.
to him. So I don't know. He could have just been 2.5 and just really blew up. I mean, I have both of his sheds as a 2.5, which is pretty cool,
Yeah.
and which is why I think he survived, because he wrapped around the front and he broke off almost all of his left side. So I don't think anybody shot him because he was basically a half rack.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think there'll be some good. Either me, my dad, or my uncle are gonna put one down. I hope it's my uncle. I mean,
Yeah.
he hasn't shot one ever with a bow, and he's due. So I hope it's him for sure. Or if not,
Right.
one of us gets eyes on him. So
Yeah. So Kolbe, Eli said he's looking to, over the next couple of years, increase the age structure on the property and the maturity of the deer that he's taken. Is that sort of a unified front for you as well, or are you maybe more willing to pull
yeah,
a
I think
trigger?
so. My goal is always just to have fun, and I just love whitetail hunting so much. I want it to always be an enjoyable season. Part of it for me is just, especially now, like having a family and kids are getting older. Like, I didn't fish a lot this summer, sacrificing other areas of my life, but one area I really don't like to sacrifice is when it comes to whitetail hunting. I just love it. It's my favorite thing to do. I just want to have fun out in the woods, whether that's harvesting a deer or not, just hanging out with one of my best friends. But yeah, my goal this year is to be a little bit more patient. There's really 2 deer on our private property that are really on my list, Mr. Krabs and a deer we called Hooch. I don't know if he touched on that or not while I was away for a second, but those 2 are really the top 2 on the list, and I think I'm going to be patient and either wait for those 2 or, just see how the season progresses, and whether it's public land, different opportunities, seeing what's out there, or just seeing what else filters in, because I don't ever get too high or too low based on summer cam picks, because we've seen it plenty of times before where, we've had a deer on every single day and then they shed velvet and the season comes and he's gone. And then you hear of a neighbor a mile over the next ridge or 2 that shoots them. And vice versa. We've had summers where the picks are so, and then the season comes and you get into later towards the rut and all of a sudden bigger bucks filter in. So we do have if you would draw the list down, there are plenty of other, very, very nice, respectable deer, but I think they're going to get the pass this year, and I'm going to be a little bit more patient. And not that I'm zeroing in on those 2. I mean, I kind of am, but I'm also going to see what happens as well. Those 2 specific deer, if I get an opportunity in the first 2 weekends, because I do plan on hunting the first 2 weekends of the season, I think they're going to get an arrow. But if it's not those 2, I think everything else is going to get passed, and we're going to see what the rest of the season brings this year. But goal for me is always just have a good time. This is supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be this stressful thing. I know 2 years ago I really zeroed in on Dozer. I think that really huge 11-pointer, and I tried specifically hunting this one buck, and I was chasing trail camera pictures all over the property. And really had a dud of a year. I wasn't even seeing any shooters. I always seemed like I was one step behind because I was chasing trail camera pics, and really wasn't that much fun zeroing in on that one specific deer. So couple of options, but going to take the season as it comes. I want to be patient. I would love to harvest, like Eli said, a 4.5-year-old or older, but I still feel like the baseline for us is always what gets the ticker going.
Mm-hmm.
And if that deer comes in and you're jacked up, you're excited, like, let the arrow fly with no regrets, but gonna try to be a little selective, I guess.
Yeah.
When it comes to the Wisconsin bow season.
Right.
So what about for you?
Yeah,
Fritzy?
I mean, I think I'm kind of the opposite of you guys, but I mean, just for
You're also in a little different
just for
predicament than they are.
Yeah, a very different situation, obviously. I mean, one thing that has been mentioned is I'm going to try to shoot a doe with a bow.
Rightfully
because
so.
it's been 6 years since I've shot a deer, period.
Not including
And that
the
was
bow.
with a gun. We haven't worked it out what it's been with a bow, but
8 to 10, I'd say.
8 to 10 for
I mean,
sure,
we were
I
like,
think.
you were probably 12. What are you now, 21?
21.
Almost 20.
Almost 22.
So you're probably, 12 years old.
Yeah, so it's just been so long. Shooting a doe at least is like number one goal. I think I'm probably shooting the first 2.5 that walks by.
Which you
regardless
I think you
of,
should.
Yeah, regardless of what he looks like.
I mean,
I
I
think
matter.
I guarantee you, your heart will be pumping, and just to shoot
Right,
something with your
right.
bow is going to be, it's insane.
If I could bring out the box or wherever they are now of all the quote unquote small or 2-year-old or 1.5-year-old or basket rack bucks that I've shot in my life, like there's a whole bunch.
Yeah.
Like there's a process in getting, there's an evolution as a hunter. And I feel like you got to get some deer under your belt.
right.
I feel like that's a mistake with too many people that first get into hunting is they're watching all this YouTube stuff or Outdoor Channel or whatever, and seeing all these big bucks drop, and then that's their goal right off the bat.
Yep.
And it's just, man, get some deer under your belt, have some fun, enjoy harvesting some whitetails, be proud of whatever you shoot, and who cares? People are judging deer way too much, and that
Yeah.
just drives me crazy. Like, just be happy for someone that they were out there enjoying the great outdoors, harvesting an animal, getting some healthy, great venison for their family,
Yeah.
and having a good time. So that would be my
And one of
recommendation.
the perspectives I've heard recently, that I think is kind of the one that I share, is that you should always try to shoot like at the maximum potential for the age structure that your property has. We see a 3.5-year-old buck on a trail camera once every other year, probably. So if that,
I'd say you get a 3.5 that'll stroll through at least once a year.
that may be true. Like in the rut, that probably happens. But I mean,
your property's better in the rut than it is.
It is
From July till middle of October.
for sure. It's definitely pre-rut to rut is like the prime time there because everything's traveling through there. But it's just there's no chance that a 5.5-year-old deer is coming on there. Even if he strolls by, he's gonna stroll by one day. He's not living there for more than one day. So it's like the kind of the maximum for us is like a 2.5 or a 3.5-year-old deer.
Which is still a hell of a deer.
Yeah,
And I
it's
think
still,
you should shoot the first one. Like Kolbe said, that my first one I shot 1.5 years, and I shot 3 2.5s after that, and then
Right.
after that, then I was shooting. I mean, you get some of those kids who are, I don't want to say spoiled, but they go out and shoot 150 incher their first deer ever, and it's like, well, where do you go from there?
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, dude, I'm glad I came up the way I
me
did.
too.
Versus like, Dad put me in front of a 150 incher when I'm 8 years old and I can't even handle the weapon on my own, and I got a crossbow on a tripod and he aims it for me, and all I do is pull the trigger. I'm glad the way things happened for me. I had a couple of misses early, and then I shot a bunch of basket racks, and I was just as jacked up, if not more jacked up, and heart racing and just buck fever galore over that freaking 8-point basket rack than I was over the 174 incher I shot.
I mean,
I have my first buck mounted in my garage, and I get so many questions like, why'd you get that deer mounted? Just living in the southwestern part of Wisconsin, people see it and they're like, well, why'd you get that deer? Like, that's probably one of my best deer memories of all time. It was my first buck. Well, I don't know. I think scores 115 inches, 110 inches.
Yeah.
115 inches. Like, but man, was I just jacked about it.
You've even said that to me before. Oh, I don't know if I can't believe I got that one mounted. And I'm like, dude, man, that's one of my best memories. And it wasn't even me shooting a deer. Like, we were both cutting our teeth into bow hunting.
Yeah.
Just getting started in the hills there in college. And I think we've told this story on a previous podcast before, but I still remember that morning crystal clear of you shooting that deer over in the corner stand over there, and I was sitting a ground blind in the Christmas tree plot, and 8:30, 9 o'clock, I can see you coming over the hill, and I could just tell by how you were walking, it just looked like this jittery walk. I'm like, this was like before we were texting each other and doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, he shot a freaking buck. And I was like already climbing out of the blind before he even got to me. Wasn't mad that it was 8:30 and he was coming in or screwing up my hunt. I didn't care. I knew it right from just watching him over that he had shot a deer, and it's still one of my favorite. I can still remember taking that deer down to by the water there by the Mississippi and taking the pictures, and man, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
I think my buddy from high school was down there.
Yeah,
Tobacco,
yeah.
yeah. But, and just going back, like, you guys talked about age structure, like, you have to have realistic goals for the properties that you're hunting.
Right.
So, like, it's easy for Pat and I to say, like, we want to shoot a 4-year-old, and, like, well, what I said is, like, over the next 3 years, be able to progress to waiting till 5. But, like, we're in a good situation. Like,
Yeah.
That's the norm there.
like that, while there's a neighbor that has 400 acres that isn't going to shoot one that's 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe a 4, but he's not going to shoot a 3-year-old. And then adjoining to that, like, just bought the new 40. Like, he's probably got 400 acres, so it's like 400. The property we're on is like 180. And then across the road from that property is another 400 acre that, like, where it's everybody in the area is kind of on the same page as far as let's try to let the deer get mature. So if you don't have neighbors that are going to be willing to do that, and that's what I would say is, like, do you know your neighbors? Have you talked to your neighbors? Do you know what their goals are? If you don't have neighbors that are willing to do that, then that's not a realistic goal for you on your property.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For sure. So if we go back through real quick then, Wisconsin gun season, does anybody's goals change when it gets to there? Is it still the same? You're still trying to just advance that age structure? Still the same?
No.
Yeah, totally different. Totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a complete different property. Eli usually comes up and hunts at my family's cabin land, at least on opening weekend, and we just don't have the amount of. It's not that we don't have the age structure. It's just the amount of older deer. There's just less of them.
Yeah.
There is some big tracts of private land connected to ours, and those guys do some nice QDM, but there's also a lot of brownets down in the area as well, and we've had it many times where you pass bucks and they go out in the field and first guy that sees it is cracking at it, and is part of it. But I'd say up there we just kind of roll with outside the ears, solid 8 to 10 point or better. We try to make it a nice 2.5, 3.5 or better
Sure.
buck, but there it's more about the camaraderie, the fun, hanging out with my dad and my brother and the group and the tradition, and trying to put some deer on the ground. And that's the best thing about how my season is structured is I've got all these opportunities to kind of hunt different ways. And me and Eli are hunting the same way, essentially. Like, we've got our Wisconsin bow season and some properties where we're
Trophy hunting.
essentially like trophy hunting, like trying to shoot a mature class deer.
Yep.
Then we choose to go to Minnesota for their gun season. And what I love about that is there's zero expectation. Yes, are there some mega deer over there? Absolutely. But you don't have any trail cameras. You don't really know what you're getting into. So that is truly whatever gets the heart ticking in the moment and whatever I want to shoot. And then from there you go to the Wisconsin gun season up on a completely different property where it's, you know, all about the camaraderie, having fun, and again, a little bit of the whatever gets your heart ticking, nice, respectable buck. But there's these just different phases of the season and different places we're hunting where you kind of get this full experience where, you know, we kind of have super high expectations in the Wisconsin bowl. Then there's no expectation in Minnesota. Just shoot whatever you want. Man, I don't care if we go over there and shoot a fork, corner, a spike.
Yeah.
Shoot, we'll celebrate that. Crack a few Busch Lights, have fun.
And
then
some backstraps.
Yeah, eat some backstraps. Not that we have shot that type of deer. Like, I think we're all going for a nice buck. But
Right.
and then you're back in Wisconsin for the gun season, where it's back about camaraderie, having fun, tradition, family, and you don't really care who shoots one. You just want to have fun with the group.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's just a well-rounded season.
Right.
The gun season is all about tradition and the social part of it, opening weekend, and then after that, it's about, for me, it's more about kind of passing it on and hunting with Ty, my stepson. And, you know, last year, I felt so bad when I shot that deer because that was supposed to be his buck.
Yeah.
And it was just something where, you know, like his dad had already made plans and it was one of his days, so he couldn't come with me that afternoon.
Yeah.
So am I going to just leave? No, I'm not going to just leave it. I went in there, but the intention was he's coming with me. We're going in there together. Like, I knew the log that we were going to go sit behind on the ground together, and he would have been able to dust that thing. But, you know, that's more of what it's about, and it's just a bonus if I end up bagging one.
Right. Does your strategy change or your goals change at all, Jake?
Probably
in the
not.
gun season? Pretty much the same.
Just because it's the same property.
Right.
But it also is I really don't care. I don't have high expectations for gun season because in Wisconsin it is like a tradition. I mean, you get people like we've had it before where my uncle passed up a buck that was missing half of his rack just because he was all busted up. And we would have shot him earlier in the year, but he broke off 4 or 5 points.
Yep.
Walked across the fence line, got shot 5 minutes later.
Yep.
You know, just stuff like that. It's like, well, what are you gonna do? But I'm more up there to hang out with everybody. It's way more fun just because my cousins are up there. It's not like bow season where everybody's up there, and you know, I'm not gonna go out there and whack a 2.5 just because I'm past that point.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And I'm glad my dad was like this, and my uncle. You know, me being a 10, 12-year-old, I wanted to shoot anything I saw, and they didn't care. They weren't gonna tell me no. And even when I did shoot, I shot 4 bucks in a year and a half and 3 2.5s, and they didn't even tell me, like, you know, maybe you should wait, and they kind of let me figure that out on my own to decide, you know, maybe you should wait a little bit and shoot some bigger ones. And once I started doing that, I'm so glad I did, and that they didn't pressure me, because if they pressured me, I probably wouldn't have wanted to, and I probably would have wanted to shoot more 2.5s and, you know, shoot whatever I saw. And so it's pretty much the same. But you know, like when we were on the way up here, we were talking about Minnesota a little bit, and you guys were so gracious enough to invite us this year. And you know, like we were talking, you see a 120 incher, put that thing down. You know, I mean that's like still a great deer, especially in a new state.
You see an 85 incher,
right?
So that's exactly. I'll start there.
Put that thing down.
Right.
Wisconsin gun season, my goals don't change. I'm probably shooting a doe if I have the chance at one.
I'll shoot 3 or 4 does during the gun season.
Yeah, I'm shooting the first 2.5 that I see. But Minnesota, that's pretty much quoted word for word what I was saying. Like, you guys have had some chances at some really, really nice bucks over there, but I don't even need, just with the track record that I've had, I don't even need that. Like, 120 incher.
I'd
more
shoot
than
a
happy.
120
I'm
incher.
shooting it like
I'll shoot 120.
That's
Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying. And
right.
just the
So,
fact
like,
that it's almost like Wisconsin gun season, but just there that, you know, all 4 of us would be there.
right.
Plus maybe some more, and it'd be a great time. You know, 120 inch deer is still a great deer.
Right. Yeah. So that's what I'm really excited for there, because I feel like there's a decent opportunity there to get, at least if nothing else, to a new place with guys who know what they're doing over there to a certain extent and have had some opportunities at some decent bucks there, it's going to be a chance to learn and a chance to have an opportunity maybe at a decent buck.
Here's what's fun about it. Like, the area that we're hunting in is so diverse. If you want to hunt hills, you can hunt hills.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to hunt river bottom, creek bottom, you can hunt that. Like, with more people, there's a very solid chance we'll get together and maybe do some drives. But like, the options for being able to just try out different things, and it really doesn't matter. Like, we'll do some wild stuff. Like,
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, we had the canoe
With
in
the
there.
canoe, yeah.
Yeah.
We were paddling, and like, that was a great option. I had an opportunity at one, just never quite. Like, I never even ended up taking a shot. It just didn't quite work out right. But, just, it's a good chance for you to sit down. We'll talk about all, like, the e-scouting and stuff, point you to some areas. But, like, by no means is it, I don't think it's good to, like, hold people's hand with it. Like, here's an area. This is good. These are the general areas where I would go. I haven't walked in there. You're going to have to go in there and kind of learn it for
Figure
yourself.
It out, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be a fun experience, I think. And we'll have, I have the 4-horse motor now, and I'm working on a flat bottom
Ooh.
Nice.
to upgrade over the
Sweet.
canoe.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But that might open some options up. But
Sure.
so if you want to go in by boat and mess around with that, go in by boat and mess around with that. If you want to bring waders and walk in and to some spots where you're gonna have to cross a creek and probably be, tits deep,
Yeah.
then go and do that. If you want to sweat and walk up and down the hills and learn how to hunt hills better, go and do that. Like, it's all about just having fun and then getting better and
Yeah.
and learning, building your knowledge base. Like, the hunts where you don't kill something, you usually learn more than on the hunts where you do kill something.
Right.
Yeah, I really just enjoy I'm at the point in time in my career, and I don't know that I ever was any different, but I'm just happy to go hunting with a group of guys or friends, and I, honest to God, do not care if it's me that shoots one or if it's Eli or if you guys are there. I'm going to be freaking ecstatic for whoever does it. It really is not about whether I get one or not. I love the group camaraderie, and whoever gets one, let's celebrate that. I love that.
Yeah.
A couple years ago we were bow hunting in Minnesota, and our buddy Mike who's been coming a couple of years with us now. He got one with the bow.
Yeah.
Awesome. We struck out. We had you had some encounters. I had a rough week when I was there, but so jacked up for Mike. And what an awesome experience that was. And
Yeah.
it didn't matter to me that I went home without putting
No.
a tag on anything. I honestly do not care.
Well, the three of us were down there together
Yep.
and tracking it, and then we had to go knock on a door and get permission to continue tracking it.
Yeah.
The whole process of finding that deer was awesome. And then we're looking at it, and it's like, we're going to take it up that. Nope. So we ended up doing the canoe pack out.
Yeah,
and
you Daniel booned it down the river for 10 miles while me and Mike went to the takeout place,
In
and
the
we're
dark.
just in the dark, and we're just like, oh my God, did he survive? Is he coming? And all of a sudden, like after an hour, we see the headlight or flashlight come around the corner, and we're like, holy shit, here comes Daniel Boone down the river in the dark with the freaking buck in the canoe. And yeah, it was awesome. Just an awesome, memorable experience. And it wasn't a deer for either of us. It was Mike's buck. So
Right.
hmm Happy to do it.
Yeah.
do it again in a heartbeat.
Yep. Got to spend time out on the water, under
Mm.
the stars,
Mm.
all by myself.
Oh, you can't beat it.
Nope.
Yeah.
Coyotes howling. I could hear. It was like right, kind of pre-rut. You could hear them chasing on the
Yeah.
like in the dark. You could hear them chase on the river.
Wow.
Like, it was like one of the most relaxing, peaceful canoe paddles I've ever had.
Wow.
After I had the sucker hooked on there. That was a
Yeah, you were doing
process.
all the work. Me and Mike were sitting on the bank drinking a couple Busch Lights, just waiting for you. So
Nice.
It was
Yeah,
fun.
I should have
pretty
packed a
sweet.
couple.
Well, I know we're all looking forward to it. It kind of goes without saying, but there's going to be some memories made
Oh,
on
yes.
that trip as well. But What do you say, boy? Should we wrap this one up?
Yeah, let's wrap
and-
this one up. Put a bow on it. And
Do you want to do another one yet tonight?
yeah, maybe.
Oh, let's keep it going. All right.
Couple more.
Okay, sure. All right. Well, I don't know when this one's going to come out. I know it's going to come out before the season, though. So within the next couple of weeks, it'll be out there. But obviously, then the season's going to roll around, and that's our prime time, and we're super excited. There's going to be a lot of content coming out, obviously. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. We really appreciate it. And we appreciate you guys watching and listening to this episode. And sounds like we're going to do a couple more now. So there's going to be more to come.
Have
Yeah.
fun. Shoot whatever gets your heart racing.
Absolutely.
Dude, right there. Have fun.
That's
Shoot
it.
whatever gets your heart racing. And
Enjoy it.
dude, just thanks for coming along with us. Like,
Yeah.
we're not making any money off this. Like, we're just doing this because we're passionate guys about the outdoors. We love talking whitetails. We like filming our hunts and creating memories, and appreciate everyone that's, following along, coming along for the ride, and listening to us and watching our stuff. So
Yeah.
If you made it to this point, you are awesome.
you're a Buck Fever groupie. We
Thanks,
love
Mom.
you.
Yeah. Thanks. That my mom too.
Yeah, right. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you guys next time.
See ya.